Hello everyone, welcome to our first mini lecture for Sci 112. We are continuing our discussion of stress and coping, today talking about individual factors in stress. So first, let's start off by talking about some psychological factors that come into play here. So first, this might seem pretty intuitive to all of you. Personal control over our stress-producing events can reduce our distress. So the more control we have over a situation, typically the better that we feel. However, the perception of the control must be realistic and adaptive. So let's say that you're faced with some sort of a global pandemic, for example, and you are displaced from your normal day-to-day activities. That's pretty stressful. But knowing that you can choose to work from home and that you have sort of a nice relaxed pace to work on your assignments might help. You know that you have control over what's happening, you have what you need to get things done, and you don't feel so bad. Also knowing that because of that structure, you're free to avoid crowded places and you're exposed to less risk, you might feel better because you can sort of control your personal risk there. However, a maladaptive example might be that you feel like you are responsible for the health of your friends and family members, and you can't control what they do. So because you feel responsible for something, that's something you can control, but you're not able to do it, that can be a greater source of stress. That's not a realistic expectation, so that disconnect is stressful. This is more valued in individualistic cultures like our own. So, because we sort of value autonomy, having autonomy and control in a stressful situation is helpful for us. In fact, a study that your book talks about found that nursing home residents that were given control over choices were more alert, active, and healthier than those who did not. So people who are in an environment where they have minimal control, if they're given just some arbitrary choice over some part of their day, they are healthier, more alert, and more active. So it's just good all around. So let's talk a little bit about explanatory style. There's two real ways that you can think about or frame the events that are happening to you. The first is optimistic. An optimistic explanatory style means that you use external, unstable, and specific explanations for negative events. So something bad happens to you, and you explain it using these external, unstable, and specific explanations. This is generally a healthier way of explaining things, predicts better health outcomes, and a stronger immune system. So let's say, for example, you were fired from your job as a server at a mid-tier sit-down restaurant. And you're puzzled by this. You sort of start thinking about it. What happened? How did I lose my job? And you might say something like, well, I was fired because my restaurant isn't doing well. Nobody wants to pay $20 for a quesadilla explosion salad. If people wanted that, I'd still be serving. I just can't sell a product that no one wants. I'll get a job somewhere people like to eat, like Taco Bell. Right? So that's external. It's not your fault. It's because you're trying to sell a product that no one wants. It is unstable. It's not something that's fixed. If that were to change, the outcome would change, and it's specific, right? It's because of this problem. It's not something general. It's because this product is something no one wants. You can't be expected to sell it. Let's contrast that with the pessimistic explanatory style. This is internal, stable, and global explanations, right? So you attribute this to an internal factor. It's stable, so it doesn't change from here to there, and it's global. It's not just one specific thing. It's a big problem. This predicts worse outcomes. So health outcomes are less good than those who prefer a pessimistic explanatory style. So an example of this would be to say, oh, I was fired because I'm bad with people. I'm really just too weird to sell quesadilla explosion salads. It's my fault. Sometimes I think I'll never hold down a job, right? So this is internal. It's my fault because I'm weird. It is stable. This is just a trait of who I am. I can't change that. It's always going to be this way. And global. I'll never hold down a job. It doesn't matter if it's at Chili's or anywhere. I can't hold down a job. So this is just a big problem that is global. And in fact, this is a real thing. Chili's does make a fajita explosion salad. It has nearly 1,500 calories, and you should never, for any reason, eat it. Let's talk about chronic negative emotions. So this sort of fits in with those explanatory styles and will actually fit in nicely with what we're talking about next time. Having chronically expressed negative emotions are strongly linked to poor health. People who are habitually anxious, depressed, angry, or hostile are more likely to develop disease, for example, things like arthritis or heart disease. And positive emotions, however, are associated with decreased resistance to infection, decreased illness, less pain, and increased longevity. So Of course, this might sound sort of self-evident. It's better to have chronic positive emotionality than chronic negative emotionality. And we'll talk a little bit more in the next mini lecture about what are some ways to sort of control that. Something that fits in with this idea of positive and negative emotionality is behavior type. This is kind of an older way of thinking about behavior. It's not really personality in the same way that we talked about things like the MMPI, personality type inventories. This is more of a broad classification of behaviors. You've probably heard these sort of in passing of type A and type B personalities. Type A is the sort of person who has exaggerated sense of time urgency. They want to do more things in less time. This is accompanied by sort of general hostility. Things like being angry and irritable. This is sort of a link back to heart disease. So like we talked about before with that sort of chronic negative emotionality, you see people who are type A are more likely to have heart disease. You see increased blood pressure and heart rate in those with the type A sort of personality as well. This is contrasted against type B, who is more easygoing, relaxed, and laid back, sort of roll with the punches. This is not associated with heart disease risk. So you can think of type A as sort of if you're in line at the grocery store and the person in front of you is on the phone trying to coordinate a complicated thing like picking up kids from soccer practice or something like that. They're getting irritated with how long the line is taking. They have places to be. You can see them getting visibly upset as the cashier is taking longer than you would expect. And by contrast, maybe you're more of a type B person. You're standing in line behind them, but you're just sort of looking at memes on your phone. You're not really paying attention to what time it is. You don't have to be anywhere in a hurry. Maybe you have a meeting, but you don't care that you're going to be late. You're just sort of relaxed and easygoing. What we know suggests that that sort of type B person who's more laid back is less likely to have bad health outcomes, whereas type A is more likely to have health issues.